time is like a river. You can never touch the same water twice. And like a river, it can be very overwhelming. When I was in my first professional job, I really enjoyed working with clients as a clinical psychologist, and I was completely overwhelmed by the paperwork, particularly writing reports, diagnostic evaluations that I needed to do. And about 6 months into the position, I was more than 30 reports behind. Right. That was not going to work. So I set about making the goal that I was going to get caught up. So I made a plan of how I was going to do that. Now, this was not the first time in my life that I had become behind. I was quite the accomplished procrastinator. And previously, I had bumped up against times where my level of procrastination just hadn't worked. So I'd gotten better about how I used my time. But this I see as a turning point in my life where I made some real changes in how I used my time. So using some of the principles that I'm going to tell you about today, I managed to, after some time and using some good principles, become the first psychologist on staff to be completely caught up with my paperwork. So as Craig mentioned, I am an academic and professional life coach. And what that means is I specialize in helping stressed out academics like yourself to get more meaning out of your career, to become more productive, and to achieve life balance, usually in a little bit more than an hour. Oops. And I'm going to be taking you through some steps today to help you make more effective use of your time. The 4 steps I'm going to cover include clearing the path, setting smart goals, doing first things first, and considering time and place. So being mindful of the time that we have together, I've allowed some time at the end for questions. But if you have a burning question or a comment that you really want to contribute, feel free to jump in, because it's important that we keep this interactive, and your contributions are important. Okay? All right. So first, we're going to start with clearing the path. Now, this is something that I do as part of my work with all of my clients, regardless of what we're working on. And the reason why I look at this is no matter what a great strategy I might have for my client, no matter what great ideas you might bring to the table or other people might suggest to you what great book someone might have for you to read. Until we look at what obstacles are getting in the way of your change, we've got to address those obstacles that are getting in the way and clear the path before we can help you move down the path toward reaching your goals. So we're going to talk about that first. So I'm going to address a few of the obstacles that can get in the way of our change. Okay? The first one is here at the bottom of the path. Because for everyone, we need to address motivation. So you have different changes in your life that you're in different phases of motivation in regard to those changes. You have changes that are so important to you and you're so on board with them that, in fact, you're already making them. You're in maintenance phase. You have other changes that you really want to make and you're very motivated and you just want the resources to do them. You have other ones that are really yeah, they sound like a good idea, but you're not really there yet, right? Does that sound familiar? You also know people who you think, man, that person really needs to stop smoking. Or, gosh, this person I care about really needs to improve their health, or really needs to improve their time management, or you know, all these things, right? And you tell them, and you tell them, and you tell them, and then you tell them, and they don't change. Why? Because of motivation. Until you feel it's important enough to make a change, you're not going to change, right? Makes sense. Okay. So this is the first thing that I address when I'm working with a client is their motivation, because we got to make sure that there's nothing muddying up the waters of that. Otherwise, we waste a lot of time working together. And so a very powerful way to address this and assess this is something that's called the acid test. So you all came to this presentation for a reason, likely because you're interested in making a change. So I'd like you to imagine that there's a button for those of you sitting at the table or for those of you sitting in a chair just on something in front of you. So there's a button right there in front of you. And if you're to push this button, when you push this button, you will make a change. You will make a change in regard to how you use your time. You're going to use it much more effectively. You're going to be much more productive. You're going to get things done. You're going to be a time use machine. Okay? So, will you push that button? How many people will push that button right now, no hesitancy? Raise your hand if you'll do it. Okay, got a lot of hands up. Who is not sure? Are there any mixed feelings about that? No mixed feelings? Wow. Oh, there's a brave person. Good, because you know, and I'm so glad you raised your hand, because never do I give these presentations and everybody in the room is like, yeah, go for it. Okay, tell me, do you mind sharing?
I know what it would take.
Okay.
I don't want to make those changes. So
great.
I'm not productive in the mornings. I know I would have more time without me getting up earlier, and I don't want to do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that's true, because when we're making a change, there are benefits to making the change, and there are costs. Thank you so much for your honesty. There are always costs to making a change, and if it was just as simple as just doing it, like my title says, then we would have done it, right? Excellent. There are always costs to making a change, and it's not that simple. Great. And for some people, it's just like, man, I just need the information. I just need the resources. Just tell me what to do, and I'm going to do it. For other people, it's like, it's the cost. I just don't know if I want to pay that cost. For others, there are other things, you know. But oftentimes, it's like, I don't want to make the effort, or I don't, you know, there's just things I don't want to give up. Okay, there's a lot of different things. So thank you for sharing that. That's really good. Okay. Sure. Another one would be great.
It has to do with attribution, because like I could sit here and say I'm already managing my time as well as anyone possibly could. The problem is there's only 24 hours in a friggin' day. Mm-hmm. So what more can I do?
Great, great. So you don't see yourself as having control over your ability to do something differently with your time. Great. So it's how you see yourself, how you see the situation.
Which may not, of course, be accurate.
Right. And we'll be getting to that. Right. And the other thing, and that reminds me too of that kind of feeling of being out of control of how you use your time. And remember when I talked about time being like a river? And I did want to mention that my goal in talking to you about time is that we use our time differently. Because I love the metaphor of the river, because we can't manage a river really. Humans try to, but really, as we know from the flood, we can't really manage a river, but we can try to use our time as well as we can. But that's a great example. I like that attribution example. Okay. Other blocks in our path include beliefs and emotions. And I like your attribution example because that reminds me of beliefs as well. So I love talking to a Peabody audience because some of you probably know something about this psychology stuff. I probably don't have to tell you a lot about this, but in case there are people in the room. So our beliefs affect our behavior and our emotions, right? And this can get in the way. We have these automatic negative beliefs that can sabotage our change. And when we think about making a change, we have these negative self-talk that can get in the way, can block our path in making the change. And on the back of your handout, so the front of your handout has the outline of my talk so you can take notes and so on and so forth. On the back, I have a list of typical automatic thoughts, types of automatic thoughts, just for your reference so that you'll have that. But we can overgeneralize about our negative experiences or catastrophize and so on. Oftentimes we're really down on ourselves about our ability to make a change. And so what's important to do is to notice that we're saying these things to ourselves, catch ourselves in the act, and then do something to turn that around. Can anybody give an example of a belief that can get in the way of making a change? Yes?
This project is way too big, I'm never going to get it done.
Great, great. Yeah, that's a great self-sabotaging belief for time use. Great example, right. And so catching ourselves in that and turning it around. Good stuff. And I'm giving you resources on how you can, that can help you turn those thoughts around. Now, other blocks are emotional blocks. Feeling anxious, feeling resentful, especially, let's say you have someone close to you who would love to see you use your time more effectively or in a different way. And a big piece of you knows that that would be a good idea, and another big piece of you is resentful and annoyed with them. Yeah, maybe it would be a good idea, but I don't want to do it because then they'll think they're right. Okay? So there's a lot of emotional blocks that can get in the way of making a change. Sadness, depression, anxiety, okay? You know, we start to go do that thing we need to do, and then we feel anxious and agitated. We can get up and move around in response to anxiety. We can do these cognitive things in response to anxiety. There are creative things, depending on your style, whatever works for you, journaling, okay? So what I do with my clients is I look at what's blocking the path, and let's address that first. A lot of times people fear making changes. You know, I have used my time in this way my entire life. If I do it differently, what will that mean? Okay, so addressing that fear. Questions about clearing the path before we move on? Okay. So next, we're going to talk about goal setting. And I always talk about goal setting when I talk about how we use our time, because when I work with clients about effective time use, of course they're always very busy people. And we take a look at a typical week or their obligations and what they need to do. And inevitably, I find that what they need to do in a day, what they need to do in a week, they have way more to do than any normal human being should be expected to do. It's just not possible. What they set themselves up to do, it's just not possible. Can you hand this back? Oh, you got a handout, good. We'll put this back here. And so this gets to the importance of goal setting. That what we set out to do in our week, in our day, if we look at our to-do list, those are our goals. What we want to do, those are our goals. And we need to make sure that we're setting our goals effectively. Okay? We're not going to accomplish what we want to do unless we're setting our goals effectively. Okay? So, I kind of liked this picture. It's a little pixelated, unfortunately, so I'll describe it to you. It's a staircase in the shape of a light bulb. Looks a lot better on my computer than it does on that screen, unfortunately. So SMART is an acronym for, oh my gosh, that's not showing up well. I apologize for that. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. Which fortunately I have on your handout. That's good. Good for me. Okay. So these are qualities of goals which are more easy to reach. So I'm going to use an example of exercise. This is a common goal people often set, particularly around the first of the year. I'm going to exercise more, right? Well, what does that mean? What does it mean I'm going to exercise more? I need to be more specific. What am I going to do? When am I going to do it? Okay, so it needs to be specific, because if I say I'm going to exercise more, that is not likely a goal I'm going to reach unless I do something with that goal. Okay. So for example, I'd like to hear somebody throw out a work-related goal that you want to achieve, like something you need to do.
Write a paper.
Great, write a paper. Now, write a paper. When I think about writing a paper, what kind of emotions do you suppose I experience? What kind of emotions do you experience when you think about writing a paper? Anybody?
Excitement and dread.
Oh, I'm glad you have excitement. I can't say that's a feeling I ever experienced when writing a paper. That's why I do this. Dread, okay. Excitement and dread, okay. So in order to feel less dread and more excitement, we want to change that goal, right? And be more specific. Exercise more doesn't fill us with a lot of excitement either, so we want to get more specific. I want to run. I want to run this far. I want to run a couple of times a week, right? I want to make this measurable. How far am I going to run? How long am I going to run? How many times a week? How will I know I've achieved my goal? Okay. Very important to make it achievable. So remember what I said about I meet with these clients, I look at what they plan to do in a week, and I think, oh my goodness, this is really difficult. And this is something that happens so much on campuses across the country. Because what are the qualities that got you here? What are some of the qualities that got you here?
Perseverance, determination.
Yep. So hardworking, perseverance, determination.
Curious, everything sounds interesting.
Good. Everything sounds interesting. Yeah?
Being able to work towards long-term goals.
Good. Being able to work towards long-term goals. Yes. Also, perfectionistic and high achieving. And these are great qualities. The ability to set realistic goals isn't necessarily consistent with that. And so what I find is that when I meet with my clients who are very high achieving people, is that when like I said, achievable is not a goal that they have. Achievable is not a quality of the goals that they set. So, for example, in the beginning of exercising after never exercised forever, running immediately for 30 minutes 3 times a week probably isn't achievable. I don't know if any of you have run, but it's probably not a good idea to start. Set yourself up for injury. So achievable is important. What's realistic? And I always encourage people to be very honest with themselves and look at what have they done. So like looking in terms of our schedules and what we do in a day and looking at our to-do lists. So I know if I'm looking at my to-do list and I fill up every single line on my planner, I'm not going to get all that done. What I've learned about myself is if I don't have a lot of meetings, I can get 3 things done. 3. No more than 3. That's it. It's kind of funny. It doesn't even matter if one of those 3 is a phone call. For some reason, 3. If I'm lucky and one of the 3 is a phone call, maybe 4, maybe, if I'm lucky, if I don't have anything else going on. And that's just true. That's just the truth. So if I'm really realistic with myself, that's the situation. Relevant. And I really could have skipped right down to relevant right away because to me the highest priority on this list is relevant. Now there are things you need to do in your day that's not super important and relevant to you and super meaningful to you, right? There's stuff you just have to do because your boss wants you to do them and Vanderbilt wants you to do them, right? Like I don't know how many of you have to do the it's that annual compliance training stuff. I remember having to do that. I used to work at Vanderbilt, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff you have to do, right? Cross your T's and dot your I's. I mean, there's stuff you have to do. But I hope that in your schedule, there are things that you do because they're important to you. That's really important, okay? And this is both in your workday and outside of your workday. Because it's hard to be motivated to get things done if it's not important to you. And finally, timely. What I mean is there needs to be a time frame for it. Are there things on your to-do list that just never get done? They just sit there and sit there and sit there, don't they? What's true about those things? There's no deadline. Yep. So, if something, you look at those things and decide if they're really important, relevant, ask yourself, is this relevant, is this not relevant, is this really important? If the answer is yes, put a deadline on it. Okay? All right. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to make a list. Now, there are probably people in this room who don't like to make lists. But there is a consensus among time use experts that we get to a certain point in our life where we have enough responsibilities that we cannot keep it all in our heads. Okay? So whether you're a list person or whether you're not a list person, I'm going to ask you to make a list of the things that you need to do in the next 24 hours. Go ahead. Anybody need more time? People are doing pretty well. Doing pretty well? Okay. I'm going to give myself a little more space. Okay. We're going to make use of that list, so thank you for doing that. Questions about SMART goals. What I'd like you to do is I would really like you to think about when you have things on your to-do list, think about those as goals and think about, are these specific? Are these measurable? So instead of saying things like write paper, which goodness knows I have done that in the past. I work on this all the time. Instead of saying write paper, think, what do I need to break that down, right? So spend an hour writing paper, or, you know, write a page of the paper, or write intro section, something like that. Specific, measurable, achievable. And to me, achievable and relevant are the most important parts of those. And the other parts really are strategies to help you move forward. So we've talked about clearing the path and goal setting. Now I want to talk to you about setting priorities and prioritizing. So the goal setting is going to help you focus on how realistic am I being and making these actions things that I can achieve. Now, we're going to help you take all the things that are milling around in your head, on your lists, on your desk, and decrease your sense of overwhelm. Raise your hand if you feel overwhelmed. Okay, that's not as many people as I expected, because it is April. For how many people is April overwhelming? That's still not bad. Because, I mean, on the academic calendar, April's pretty bad. Okay. So what's important is that you've got all this stuff that you have to keep track of. You've got the different areas of your work. You've got your home stuff you've got to deal with. You've got your own personal stuff that you've got to do, right? I mean, there's so much stuff that you've got to keep track of. And you've got all the different places that you keep track of that, right? You've got your electronic places you keep it, the paper places, the physical locations, and then is it all there? No. There's also stuff you haven't put somewhere because it's in your brain, right? How do you feel when you're strolling along and that thing pops back into your brain that you haven't put somewhere? How do you feel when that happens?
Where's my pen and paper?
Where's my pen and paper? Okay, that's a statement. What's the feeling?
Anxious.
Panic, anxious. Yeah, I know. And is it the first time that's popped into your brain? No, not for me either. No. Yeah, I hate that. I hate that feeling, right. So what we want to do is our goal is to cut this down for you and make it a more manageable size. So does anybody know why I have a jar of rocks up here? Yes?
I think it's this exercise with the big rocks and the small rocks.
That's right. So there's a story of the philosophy teacher who pours a bunch of rocks into a jar, and then he pours sand, and he says, is this full? No. Then he pours sand in, is this full? No. And he pours water in, is this full? Yes. And basically the rocks are the important things. Because if you started with the water and filled it up, there'd be no room for the rocks. Then it would be full. So this is about priorities. The rocks are the important things, like our health and our family, and doing things that are important to us. Okay? This is about priorities. I like that story. Okay. So it's so important when you think about all the things you do, when you feel overwhelmed, as several people do, it's so helpful to prioritize. How many people do something to prioritize the things you have to do? How many people do something? Awesome, good job. You guys get an extra 10 points. You guys get to take an extra cookie with you. Very good. I'm so glad to hear that. And does it help you? Yeah, it really helps me. Because it takes your list that's like this and shrinks it down to here. Because then you can say, oh, I don't have to do 500 things. I only have to do 3. That's really helpful. Okay. Now, there are a couple of different systems that are really well known. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. On your handout, it's a little confusing the way I talked about it, and I apologize for that. You can look at them as hierarchical. They're two different systems. So if you take notes on what I say, you'll be more clear. The first system is the ABC system. It's very well known, particularly in corporate settings. And Stephen Covey talks about it in his book, which I reference in your resource materials. Basically, guys, I don't care what system you use. You can use one of these systems. You can use your own system. I don't care. But prioritizing is a great thing to do. So the ABC system is where you take your to-do list and you mark each thing with an A, a B, or a C based on how urgent the item is to do. So A is urgent. A has to be done today. Notice that I'm stressing has to be done today, because I'm going to confess to you, who has used this system? Has anyone used this system? Craig, I'm so surprised to hear this. Craig and I have a lot in common in the way we use our time. Ooh, asterisk, yeah. Okay, good, good. So I am confessing to you right now I have overused the A's, because I think that if I put an A by it, that I'm more likely to do it. The problem with overusing the A's is that it just stresses you out. And if you put an A on something that doesn't have to be done today, then you're stressing yourself out and you're just moving that A forward, and it's just not a good idea. So really, just put an A on something that has to be done today. Has to be done today. So for me, I have 3 A's today. It was getting ready for this presentation, working out at the end of today, which is an A, because I'm training for an event, and my husband's birthday is today, so I have to be nice to him and go out to dinner tonight. So that's it. This is a pretty good day. I only have 3. Woohoo! All right, so that's a pretty simple day. B is important. B means should be done today. And we often mistake our B's for our A's. We think that it's an A and it's really a B. All right? So due by end of the day tomorrow, couple of days is a B. All right? Don't call it an A just because you think that's going to kick you in the butt to do it. It's a B. But the B might turn into an A tomorrow. Okay? That's a B. C is could be done today, but it's really not important. You'd like to get it done. Oftentimes, these are these projects. These are often the things that sit on your list forever. Okay? And so if the C keeps moving forward and forward and forward and never gets done, once again, decide, is this really important at all, and give it a deadline. Okay? That's A, B, and C. Got it? I actually use numbers within my letters. I have an A1, A2, A3 if I'm having a really crazy time. But I use numbers within the letters so that I'm a very linear person. This works wonderfully for me because I really like to know, what do I need to do first? What do I need to do second? And it makes a huge difference for my productivity to have an order in which I'm doing things. Huge, like huge difference for me. Now for some people that's like way too much structure, but if you just prioritize and get your list down to a smaller list of these are important things for me to work on today, that's great. Now, this is from David Allen's Getting Things Done. This is the 4 Ds. And this is about sorting your stuff that is in your head and you need to do. Okay, if something takes less than 2 or 3 minutes to do, just do it. Now. Well, not now. Please don't do it now. But as soon as you get back to your office, if you don't have something else you have to attend. Okay? But if it takes 2 or 3 minutes, then you're just supposed to do it. Making that phone call or whatever. This is not answering email, because if your email pile is this big, it's not going to take you 2 or 3 minutes, right? Okay. Number 2, delegate it. So your next question is this for me to handle? Now I'm letting that sink in. Because once again, another quality that I've learned about at least a number of successful, especially academics, is they're conscientious. People who show up at these kind of things are very conscientious. Successful people are conscientious, and it's very hard for them to let go and give things to other people to do. So delegating is very important. And ask yourself, is this mine to do, or could I give this to somebody else? Oh, that's hard. That's a discipline right there, right? You got to say, oh, can I trust somebody else to do this? Oh, then our perfectionism comes in, okay? So then thoughts come up, okay? But really, it's a really good thing to learn how to delegate and how to delegate effectively. Once you do it and you delegate it, guess what? You've taken some things off of your list. Now, defer it means you're not in the moment you're going to do it. You're going to plan to do it later, but you're not letting it go out into the ether. You're going to put it in a storage system, right? You're going to put it in your electronic storage system, or for me, I like the big paper storage system, your planner or your iPhone or your computer or whatever you use. So put it in whatever data storage system you use to keep track of what you need to do, okay? And note that whether it's a project or whether it's a task, because there are tasks we need to do, right? It could be, going grocery shopping, right? Or it could be writing that email that's going to take more than 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. You know, put it in a space that you're not going to forget it, okay? Now, the last one is drop it. And remember how I keep talking about, is this important? Is this important? Once again, be mindful and intentional in thinking about, are these things that I need to do? Does this need to be done? Is this important to me? And as you become practiced at this, you'll start filtering things as they're coming in. And that's a great thing. In fact, I think as a culture, we're starting to be more mindful about, for example, putting ourselves on do not call lists and taking ourselves off paper mailing lists. Have you done that? You know, I have so much less paper coming into my house now. I don't get catalogs, right? I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Filter the stuff as it comes in and ask yourself, do I need this? Is this what I need to do? And if it's not important, drop it. Get rid of it. Recycle it. All right? Questions about that? If it's a project, by the way, and you've put it in defer it, don't just put it down as do this project. Project and the first step. Okay, so plan this and the first step. Before I move on to time and place, are there questions about prioritizing? So whether you do the ABC system or the 4D system, do you see how doing that condenses what you need to do and takes some stuff off your plate? Okay, good.
Do you have more strategies for sort of the future planning of like the future task or project, something that you're deferring but you want to keep track of in your data storage?
Okay, so you want to be sure and say, you know, so you have a storage system, like a planner or?
I'm growing to-do list, and I do the red items at the top.
Okay, and so where do you write that down?
It's just in a Word doc that I added.
Okay, good. So in your Word document, so do you just write things down as like the global like project thing, or do you specify the steps?
Well, I specify the steps, and then maybe we'll put the stage in like parentheses.
Okay.
The next thing to do.
Okay, so On the back of your handout, I write down about breaking down tasks into smaller steps. And I don't know if that's similar to what you do. And I didn't mention that, so thank you for bringing that up. And that kind of goes along with both setting realistic goals and what we just talked about with prioritizing.
I guess something your system is getting at is that like you need the ABC or the 4Ds every day.
Yes. Yeah, yes. Yes.
Because that's the thing is I'll not get back to my to-do list for like a week and then I'm like, oh, what have I done?
Oh, yes, thank you. I didn't say that. And I was assuming that and I didn't say that, so thank you for asking that question, yes. You need to tend this process every day, every morning, and this is what's really important. Some people will say, I know I'm supposed to look at this, but I just don't have the time to do it. It's really an important part of the process to take time every morning or beginning of your day, whether it's the morning or the evening, actually, whatever it is, in planning. And looking at where am I in my process, and what did I not finish yesterday, and what do I need to move forward to today. And like whether, you know, pulling out your list and saying, okay, where am I in this project, or whatever. Where am I in my list? And taking a look at that, okay? I'm so glad you asked that question because you stopped me and I almost forgot to do something important. Thank you. I'd like you to take a minute, take a look at your to-do list, and either apply the ABC system, the 4D system, or your own system. I'm going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes on this. So this is a do it. Yes.
So you're probably noticing that I'm not doing that.
Right?
And that's because I already know that only A items made it onto my list.
Really?
There were 8 of them.
8 A's?
They must be done today.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So, you know,
Wow.
is there help for me? I mean, and a lot of them are big things like
Wow.
read 3 hairy scientific articles to prepare for my grad class tomorrow.
Wow.
That's one thing.
Wow.
What happens if you just did one?
Well, then I wouldn't be
Class isn't
prepared
gonna
for
not
class.
show up. Well, but you could say, then the second one is maybe the next class, or have them read it and come back with it.
They are all reading these
Yeah,
too.
but you know,
but
it didn't.
What time is
it
the class?
Wouldn't kill anyone if it were
1
less than
o'clock.
the 3, right?
Okay, so you have to read all 3 articles tonight?
today.
Today?
I mean, given you have 7 other things, I assume all 3
And
is
prepare
one
my
thing,
general
right?
remarks, and, you know,
That's
only A items made it on my list.
That's related to a question I had, like, if everything that doesn't have to be done today is a B, and then I don't get through my A's, then eventually everything becomes urgent, and I'm stressed out all the time, because I only get to the things that are absolutely urgent, and I'm running around urgent, instead of doing things that are important when they're important. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'll pile up, and there'll be days of all A's, because I keep putting off the B's.
Sooner or later, everything rises to the level of urgency if you're not doing it. And getting
But
ready.
there are days when you don't, okay, so you're in April, right? Is April overwhelming for you? Is it an A month? Besides the fact it starts with A.
I guess it's one of the A months.
Okay. There are times where we have overwhelming A's. Okay? There are overwhelming A times. Okay? And all you can do is, you know, buckle up and ride the roller coaster and do the best you can and get as much sleep as possible and, you know, really. But if 365 days a year it was like that, then I'd say we need to talk about your life. I hope you'll sign up for a complimentary session. That's what I would say. because your life should not be like that every single day. That's all I can say. Because really, there should be days when you can be doing Bs. Because when I worked in my job here, which was an administrative job where I was running a program, yeah, from August to May, I was doing A's a lot and B's sometimes, and C's never happened until the summer at all. So I know that feeling. So, but I was able to do B's, and I couldn't do C's till the summer. So that's what I would say. I'd say, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you took the time to come to this, given that you have 8 A's to do.
It wasn't even on my list.
I'd say number your A's. That's what I'd say, number your A's. Okay? Okay, we need to move on. All right? So time and place. We want to talk about schedules. Once again, I appreciate difference in style. I love structure and schedules and lists, but others are like, "Wah! You're holding me down with these words." And once again, I would like to point out that we can do schedule concepts in a big picture kind of sense, in a way that does not make people feel bad. So this is a concept, eating the frog. Has anyone heard of this? Oh, good. So.
I hear it tastes like chicken.
That's right. Well, this isn't a cooked frog, though. This is a live frog. It's not so good for the frog. Okay. So this comes from a Mark Twain quote, which is basically about doing something you don't like first thing, right? Because what do we tend to do with those things on our list that we don't like? Put them off. Oh, yeah, we don't do those first. We do the easy things first. I think I'll check my email and make a phone call and, do those easy, quick things. Open the mail. Or whatever is easy for you, or something I like. Walk around the building and say hello to people. Yeah. But sitting down and write a paper for 2 hours, I don't think so. So I end up doing that, if I do it in a way that doesn't use my time well, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when really I want to take a nap, right? So really the best thing to do so that this thing's going to get done is to do it. Stop. Do it first thing. Because that's when I have energy. The first thing in your day, whenever that is for you, you're going to have the most energy. You're going to be the most alert. So that's a scheduling concept I'd like you to consider. Make sense?
Do you believe it then when some people say, I'm not a morning person?
Don't have to be a morning person.
Okay, so you concede that maybe for some people it's going to be, midnight and
Right.
the juices are flowing.
Yeah, this concept is based on the quote,
Okay.
but you don't have to eat the frog first thing in the morning. I just want you to do it the first thing in your day. Because for some people's days start at 11 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. I have a teenager. Her friends don't get up till God knows when. But she's like me, so she gets up earlier. Okay. No, it doesn't matter to me what time of the day it is, but if you do it first thing in your day, when you're first working, you're more likely to get it done before other things get in your way. Yeah. Now, creating sacred space. This isn't about religion. This is about when you need to get something done, you're setting an appointment with yourself. Do you notice that there are certain things that just get done, that always get done? When you're meeting with someone, when you have an appointment, when someone's counting on you, those things get done. But when it's you doing an obligation for yourself, they don't always get done. So I want you to set an appointment with yourself, create sacred space for getting this done. Set some boundaries around this. Don't let anything intrude. Now we're going to get exactly to that question that you just asked. which is about some people are not morning people. But some people are morning people, right? It's about knowing yourself. Man, I wish I had looked at that before. Knowing yourself. So, energy. This is about energy. Time of day. When do you get your best energy? Don't beat yourself up trying to make yourself do things the time of day doesn't work for you. Just set your schedule so you're doing things the time of day works for you. Also, what kind of person are you as far as being around people versus being alone? Okay? So if you're a more extroverted person, it's hard for you to get things done at home by yourself all the time. Okay? So I'm a very extroverted morning person. So I set my meetings in the afternoon because it's easy for me to talk to people. And in the morning, doing things I don't really like to do as much, that's when I do things because I'm a morning person. Make sense? If you're an introvert, you know you can be by yourself. So it's good for you to be alone and work by yourself. Okay? Minimize distractions. Okay? Boy, I've been talking about how we use our time effectively for 15 years or more. I've been talking about this since the mid-90s. Back then it was about, you know, turning off your landline phone and doing things in places where people would not be like physically interrupting you. Now look what's happened. We didn't even have email back then. So when you need to get something done, turn things off. Turn everything off. And then you can take a break if you want to. Okay? Breaks are good. And do breaks in whatever way works for you. Now, the last thing is the magic words. Now, a lot of people like to say the magic word is no. And I fully recognize that it's hard to just say no. So what I like to encourage people to do, if you can just say no, when someone comes and asks you for something, when you need to get something done, or they ask you to do things and that piles up your list, because you're going to look critically at what you're doing now, right? And you're going to be filtering things as they come in. So it can be hard to say no. So I'd like you to consider saying no, but. I can't help you with that, but this other person can. I'm sorry, I'm really busy with this right now, but I'd be happy to help you with that on this day. That's no, but. And that's something we can feel good about saying. Because what we're doing is just as important as what anybody else is doing. And we can honor what we need to do and also help other people. How do you feel about that? Does that feel okay? All right. So those are ways in which you can create sacred space for what you need to do. Now, I've taken you through some steps, starting from a big pile of paper, talking about clearing the path, setting smart goals, prioritizing first things first, and creating sacred space so we can consider time and place to help you get to a more successful place. I have one final thing that I'd like to talk to you about. Because for some of you, I hope that this was enough to just get you going. For others, you may feel like, oh my gosh, I need more. And I have an offer for those of you who would like to move forward and make a serious change. I offer people a complimentary coaching session if they want to make more of a change. And this meets 3 goals. Gives you a chance to see what my coaching is like. It also gives you a chance to see if I'm a good fit for you, because you get to know me better. And it gives me a chance to see if you're a good fit for me and if I can be of help to you. It's free of charge. It's on the phone, and so it's pretty convenient. And this is no obligation to you. You don't have to hire me as your coach. But I can promise you that we'll have a good time talking, and you'll get something of value for your professional development. So this is a 45-minute call. I'm sending around clipboards so that you can sign up for a slot if you're interested. If the time slots don't work for you, this is over the next about week and a half. If the time slots don't work for you, there's also a page where you can sign up and I can give you a call and we can set something else up because I totally understand how busy people are. I also have a sign-up sheet that I'm sending around, which is my mailing list, because I offer a monthly e-newsletter once a month. It's very short because I know how people are with their emails as well. I appreciate your time and attention today, and I welcome any other questions that you have. What haven't we covered? What else would you like to ask about? Yes?
I'm sure we don't have time to talk much about this, but one of the things I think about fairly often, sort of a sociology of technology, occupations, organizations all rolled into one, and it has to do with email. I'm sure probably for most of us it's changed the way we work. It's especially changed the way we communicate with one another within a department or a center or wherever. And I think sometimes a lot of people think, and I'm among them at times, that emails are more efficient. And so we use them a lot, and sometimes exclusively. We no longer meet face-to-face because we can do it email. We don't even have calls or conference calls anymore because we can do it via email. And so I really kind of wonder just either effective or efficient or any of these other words we might want to apply to it. It may be one of those things that's the best thing since mother's milk, but then it also has the dark underside of getting in the way of good, productive work. Because how many emails can you keep track of anyway? I mean, there's some serious thoughts going on where I work, and you get an email thread that can go on for about 4 weeks or more.
Yeah.
And about 20 different people involved. And we're talking not just about, how's it going, bud? I mean, we're talking about some serious conversations.
There's
like,
something.
Okay, so you copy them and you put them in a document. You say, well, okay, it's my archive, my notes that I can go back to. But I don't find that very helpful, really.
So I actually did something when I was in my job. So I was the assistant director of the neuroscience graduate program here at Vanderbilt for 8 years. I had a lot of emails. And at a certain point, I actually decided, and I have done presentations about communication, and one of the things I talk about is when it's best to use email and when it's not best to use email. And one of the things that I decided at a certain point was, why are we emailing? Part of this traffic is just a conversation going back and forth, kind of like how people text and everything. But except it's at work, so it's, And so I said, well, if this can be done by a phone call, and then we can say, talk, do a little conversation for 3 minutes and get this resolved and save me a bunch of emails. And so I just did that at a certain point because I figured this could save me time having a phone conversation. If this doesn't have to be done by email, I'm just going to do this on the phone. And I didn't have a chance to do that long enough to see if that made an appreciable difference, but it's something to think about. And at least for myself, I couldn't necessarily impact other people's behavior, but at least I could do this for myself. Because email is for sending, if you think about it, it's for sending documents or it's for communicating with a group of people. But if you're just having a conversation with another person, why not pick up the phone? Because I was so buried by emails, and I was trying to figure out what I could do about that. One thing that's interesting is that the book that I reference, which is David Allen, who I talked about, the Getting Things Done, one of the things he addresses is that the information about how we use time really has had to change because of the influx of the technology and the email and everything, because it used to be that all of our stuff was more visible and everything, and you know, it was tasks and it was paper and it was, you know, it was all, but now it's, you know, email and texts and, you know, all these, it's all in these other places, and so he addresses that in his book, which I thought was interesting.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank